everyone, and thank you for joining us in another in our series of webinars that we conduct here at Friendship Place, where we talk about programs that we operate, issues of importance to the people we serve, and the teams that work on the ground here and get and help people who are unhoused or struggling or in need. This is a very special webinar in that we're looking ahead to 2026 and looking at what our plans are for the coming year, what we think the future holds, both city and nationally, in terms of the work that we do here. And I always start these webinars off by noting that it is much more fun and engaging if our attendees ask questions. Certainly, I'm prepared to pose questions, but it's better if it comes organically from all of you. And so, without further ado, and I'll drop other things in the chat as we go forward, different events that we have coming up that I'd love for you to sign up for. But I'd like to toss it over to Jean-Michel, our president and CEO, to start telling us all about what's going to happen in the next year. Jean-Michel, to
Yes.
you.
Well, thank you, Chris, and good afternoon, everybody. And thank you for being online for this last webinar of 2025 with us this afternoon. I know we have a lot of good friends on the call, and I appreciate your support very much. For the new people on the call, Friendship Place is a homeless services organization serving at the regional level and with a national impact through best practices. We travel to conferences to share our models and approaches with other groups, and of course, learn from them as we go along. I'm going to briefly recap 2025 and then go into our vision for 2026. So our fiscal year starts on October 1st, so FY25 ended on September 30th, and we had a good year in 25, I have to say. As you all follow the news, you know that there were challenges out there, but we were ready to meet these challenges, and we stayed calm, as we said early on during all this process, and managed at Friendship Place. And overall, it was a good year. We had some cuts, but they were offset by growth that I'm going to talk to you about. And so we were able to start fiscal year 26 on October 1 with a budget just about 1% over last year's budget, which in itself was an accomplishment because we could have faced deeper cuts. So we started 26 with hope and steady funding. There is, of course, a level of uncertainty we all know about, but I want to talk to you about two areas of growth in particular that are very significant. We were given additional counties by the Department of Veterans Affairs to serve at the Veteran Services Division. And for those of you who don't know, we are mostly a rapid rehousing provider and prevention provider for the veterans. And then there is a shallow rental subsidy program veterans have access to if need be, if they're not going to be stable after a cycle of about 7 to 9 months for the services. This budget is a rather large one now, over 9 million with this. And the target for FY26 is 750 veteran households. We serve single vets or vets with their dependents. And the team is already telling me that they will exceed this target. So we've added Anne Arundel County, Howard, Carroll, Allegheny, Garrett, and Washington. Now, our territory where it was DC Metro fans from Annapolis to the West Virginia border. And we were already serving in Frederick, but now we're the only provider in Frederick. So this is quite an accomplishment in that VA just approached us and offered us the additional counties during the summer. We are also experiencing growth, which is really a very good thing in permanent supportive housing. So when we say permanent supportive housing at Friendship Place, we are talking about 180 families on average, 300 singles in their own apartments scattered throughout the city in buildings in different neighborhoods. And then, of course, the 40 men at La Casa. During the year, the city had told us that if somebody graduated from our program, be it a family or a single person, they would not renew the slot. They would not fill the slot for us, with the exception of affordable housing complexes. And as it turns out, we were very lucky to have two partnerships come to fruition with two affordable housing complexes almost at the same time toward the end of FY25. So we will be able to welcome an additional 60 to 80 single adults in these complexes. There will be some families also in one of them. And this is exciting because the city actually will give us new people as people move on from these apartments. And so the growth will be steady. And we're excited about this at a time when, again, the rest of the system has had to freeze its resources. Um, we're going to continue, of course, to work on job placement. You know that it's really a big part of our brand, that we're advocates in that area, that we realize, of course, that it's a necessary tool to rebuild. And now, for the majority of people who come our ways, all the veterans receive it, the folks in the Bezos Fund receive it, other people. And we think it's absolutely essential to continue in that direction with the growth that we can afford there, because there is a lot of private funding at Aim Higher where we do it. And there's also support from the Department of Labor, so a federal grant for the Homeless Veterans Reintegration Program. We place now a number of veterans with our newer partner of the last 2 to 3 years at DOL, and that relationship has grown and is really an excellent one. So is the one with the Department of Veterans Affairs. Of course, at the city level, we continue to support our Department of Human Services. We are, I think, faithful partners, and we see eye to eye on different issues that are going on during the year. And especially in the last year, we really are showing understanding of what is going on and the pressure DHS is under to balance a budget that is really, really tight. So we've had some conversation with them about the value of job first, and what leaders in the city, like our new director, Rachel Pierre at the Department of Human Services, can do to promote job placement at the city level. And I'm happy to say that in conversation with Rachel, she told me that she was very proactive in that area and trying to link with DOES, the Department of Employment Services, so that the city makes a greater investment in job placement. And as you know from us, less spending on vocational training, because we don't believe in holding people in classrooms who already know how to work. The outcome is the job placement. Everything else is an output, to get technical. It's an activity toward your outcome. And so we know that in homeless services, people can't wait for jobs. They need jobs now. And as you know, at Friendship Place, we're very person-centric. We follow the trends, and we want people to be successful as soon as possible. And then there's, a greater concern that with this very large number of people receiving rapid rehousing, which does end after a period of several months on average, for us anyway, the person or the family has to have secured enough income to pay their own rent. People leave us behind, and that's a good thing, but we need to make sure that they leave us behind in a positive way and remain house. Otherwise, at the 12 months mark, 18 months mark, we do see the cliff effect, which becomes a big problem. People can lose their housing and cycle back in again. We're also talking to the city about our shared housing model. Our shared housing model was developed about 10 years ago when we had a large rapid rehousing program with the city. It takes a look at cycles of services, creating households by approaching landlords so that several people can live together with the commonality in homelessness, but also with an economic perk because it's a lot cheaper to share. And we've really developed that model, and we're able to actually share it with other groups in a very clinical way and also a very practical way in terms of um, expectation and responsibilities of on the landlord side, on the tenant side, how to approach community members when there are questions about these new households that are not group homes, so you don't have to justify the presence of the household in the neighborhood. These are just up to 5 adults in DC who are allowed to live together without a group home license. Um, and so we're excited about sharing this at a time when resources are scarce, because this model, as we say, technically in the field, relies mostly on natural resources. So these are the resources that the system does not pay for. And so there is growth in that area, we think, and it's one of these very practical solutions that we like to propose at Friendship Place. We think it's really essential to think in a very pragmatic way when you are facing challenges like the ones we are seeing this year. You still have to make do, and you still have people at the door, so you still have to really push to serve as many people as you can and help people broaden their outlook on what it means to secure housing for somebody. When we started this model years ago, I would hear at meetings downtown that there was no more affordable housing because people couldn't afford even to rent a studio. Well, as human service workers and homeless services workers, we have to think beyond that and stretch our thinking so we can help people in a way that's long lasting and it constitutes a solution. If you project these households way into, several years after they're formed, in the best cases, they become also families of choice because there is support in the house through the commonality again in homelessness, and because these household members become a lot like family members. So we look at that also. We think it's important. Looking ahead to 2026 also for advocacy, still, we are going to continue to grow our seniors initiative. You know that Lynn started it about 18 months ago. Lynn Amano is our director of advocacy. If you need to contact her, we can put her email in the chat. And we also have the Friendship Place Action Network, the FAN, with now over 150 people on it. And so you can follow what is going on with advocacy in the district and sometimes beyond, and get involved with us because, as constituents in the districts, or even if you happen to be over the line in one of the counties, your voices are very important. You need to let your um, representatives, your council members, know how you feel and what in what way they could support organizations like Friendship Place and all the others, of course, in the city. So the Friendship Place Action Network helps you connect with everything we do at Friendship Place. Lynn directs it, but a lot of us are part of this, and we do a lot of public speaking. As you know, we're a very front-facing organization. We like to be transparent at Friendship Place and talk to you about the wonderful results, but also sometimes about the challenges, because as a community, it takes all of us to move this forward and help the field of homeless services grow. And always say it's a very exciting time still to work in homeless services because we are building the practices as we go along. We follow the trends at Friendship Place, and year after year, we change what we do. We position our resources in different ways to meet the demand and be more effective in our approach and cost effective, of course, because we are responsible to public funders, but also to all of you, the private funders, responsible for the way we invest in these programs and the results we produce. Of course, another prong of advocacy for us is budget advocacy. It's very simple. Year after year, we need to make sure that council members in the district understand what the priorities are and who we are, what we are seeing on the street and beyond, and in all the programs, so that they can make the right decisions, of course. when it comes to funding, but sometimes also when it comes to prioritizing a type of service over another. And one of the successes we've had in the last 3 to 4 years is that our job first model, where we assume employability. This is a bit technical, but what it means is that we look at everybody coming our way who is ready and able to work as being able to get a job now. And we expedite the soft skills training, as we say, put people in front of employers for competitive interviews, nothing prearranged. You have to earn the job, and then work on retention. And we place people very quickly. Job First is now part of the DC legislation, but our challenge is to get the council members to remember it for long-term change. We've had some successes with local grants, but they haven't lasted. So we want to work on that. For the numbers for FY25, they're just over what we had in the year before, FY24. 5,443 people came our way. That included 825 families, already 754 veterans. So you know that we're going to go over this with the expansion. And we went over our target for that year, of course. But just to give you an idea, also about 1,700 children and over 3,600 adults came our way for services. I have some really good news this year that some of you already know about. We had the renewal of a 5-year grant from the Bessos Day One Families Funds. So the Bessos family renewed their $2.5 million grant. We were very excited about this because we had actually, thank you, Tracy. Tracy, a wonderful consultant for strategic planning and other things, is on the line with us today. We are excited because actually we had planned to run out of funds just on time, and this was good planning. With these grants, you have to show utilization. I think it's really important at that scale, $500,000 a year. You really need to show a funder that you're using their funds, they're necessary, and they should be renewed. So we were just about spent. We had very little money left with a very active year at the Bessos Fund. It's managed out of the Welcome Center. Uh, and so close to 600 families came forth for help through that grant. And the news was great. We made it public very recently. We had known about it for a while and working on, there's a radio interview that's going to come out on this. So we're really happy to have the exposure just before year-end giving, of course, and to have the confidence of a very important funders. All funders are important to at Friendship Place, big and small. We need everybody. That's important to remember also. But we're very excited to have gotten this grant again. That means that for 5 years, at about $500,000 a year again, we will be able to help a number of families coming our way. The families have to be in homelessness for this grant, and start the process. We're also able to help families at the Brooks because they are considered in homelessness, of course. And the grant, which you may or may not know, includes, of course, housing support, flexible supports, the way we like to work at Friendship Place, but also job placement, again, so essential at a time like this, as we said. We also had some very good news just last week with the return of Valley Place. So for those of you who don't know, we run currently 3 buildings for the city. The oldest one is La Casa for 40 men at Irving and the 14th, a wonderful community there, and the most vulnerable men in the entire DC system come to us with high medical needs, other needs, of course. And we have a wonderful staff there, very friendly and skilled staff who, creates this community, these homes for the 40 men, which is great. The second one we opened, of course, was the Brooks on 2020 on Idaho Avenue near the police station, almost at Idaho and Wisconsin. And there we work with 50 families who arrive in homelessness and exit in housing. And then the third building currently is the Aston on New Hampshire Avenue near the Ritz-Carlton. Quite an achievement for the team to open such a wonderful bridge housing facility for 100 singles last fall. Capacity is 190 for the advocates on the call. You know that. You can help us by calling your council member to move it up because we're not supposed to get involved with that on the staff. But we certainly would support moving up to 190 during the winter when the need is high. We don't want people to be on the street while we have room in a program currently capped at 100. Um, it was an accomplishment to really open this program during the year in that, there was, as you know, community opposition, but also a lot of friendly people, friendly neighbors in the community who supported us. The team has done a great job of building ties with neighbors and building practices at the same time. So the Aston actually just 1 year into it, or just over that, is really well established in the neighborhood. A relationship with the funders, DHS obviously, but also the Community Partnership for the Prevention of Homelessness. We're a sub-grantee of that group. Relationship with them is excellent, and we continue to see what we can do with this model, which is a very good one. For the first time, you may remember that we are not separating families with everybody over 18 by gender at the Aston. And this may not seem like a lot, but it's very important. I use the example, for instance, of a 19-year-old young man presenting for services with his sister and his mother in a traditional shelter system, which is still in place in the city. The family would be separated by gender, meaning that the young man would rebuild a few miles away and be exposed to, things that can go on in big shelters. In this case, the family can stay together. The Aston offers a studio apartment for no more than two people per studio apartment. So we get to house families, even if they're quite large, with everybody over 18 there. And then again, we have vulnerable singles who need more medical support. So the joint mission there, that's really a great one. And I have to say, I think definitely a case study to open a building like that in a neighborhood as, as affluent, as nice as the West End. Um, so the good news now, Valley Place is coming back. Valley Place had to close in September. And Valley Place, you may remember, served singles for bridge housing, and we would manage to serve up to 55 singles or so, depending on the bedroom configuration, because there we did not separate couples in any form. Um, the city told us during the summer that they had run out of funds and had to close Valley Place, but the good news is that it is going to reopen in February for families. It will be folded under the Brooks and function as an overflow location for families who will be family style, meaning that they will cook their own meals. They will be more independent in that way anyway, than the families at the Brooks. And so we are very excited to see the return of this program, which, was the first program actually for us, bricks and mortar program, if you want, east of the river. And we really feel that it's very important to have a presence there. Of course, many of the 300 singles and 180 families live east of the river, but this was the first time we actually ran a program there. So we are very happy to see it return. I just want to also mention briefly, because time is going by and we want more of a conversation, that we have managed to remain active on the national level during the year. I have to say at the start of the year, it was a bit of a concern. Things were changing. We didn't know quite what we were going to see. But we have been invited to conferences to present our models like Job First, our organizational culture. We work on transformational leadership, for instance. All that is very important at Friendship Place. Um, and so invitations from the National Alliance to End Homelessness, National Coalition for Homeless Veterans, Life Path, as usual, in Nashville. We've become regulars there, it seems. They invite us every year. We had a national level webinar for VA. It was on organizational culture. And then the Corporation for Supportive Housing based in New York invited us to share. And there was a first time invite overseas to Portugal with their National Mental Health Association. I was invited to present Job First. They had heard us at a conference in Atlanta last year and decided to invite us to present. They want to do more work. So it's nice to see that, word is spreading and the invitations come for a bit farther these days. And that this part of the work, which is really important to us at Friendship Place, because we do want to help move the field forward in our small way, right? We realize we're a regional providers, but I think there's a responsibility for anybody to share their practices out there. The goal is to make sure that wherever somebody arrives, they are met with the highest level of respect and find programming that constitutes solutions at Friendship Place. I'll stop now and take any questions.
While folks are coming up with their questions, I'm happy to share some of our upcoming events. And this way you can learn a little more about things that are going on here at Friendship Place. So let me start by telling you that we do have, and I'm going to drop a few things in the chat here. To start, we have Music of Friends coming up on February 1, and their link there is for you to click on. That link is live. You can purchase tickets and sponsorships for that starting now. Before that, though, we do have a toy drive going on. We're at about 50% of our capacity for an ongoing toy drive that we're doing for the children we serve. And that will be I think we're closing out the sign up genius at the end of this week, and then gifts would need to be received at our U Street location next week. And I mentioned Music of Friends. And I also want to drop in the chat. We still have to finish up the web page on this one, but you can register for a walk to end homelessness, which is on March 25th. I'm sorry, April 25th on the National Mall. You can click there. And we are also doing our Friends and Neighbors Breakfast on March the 18th. Now, I'm going to try to do something a little interesting for those who might be watching this online. I'm going to share my screen and share some QR codes that, if I'm doing this right, you might be able to look at and scan if you're watching this online. So bear with me a moment. Let me sure I'll do this right. Let us start with Music of Friends. So I'm going to share a picture here that hopefully you're looking at. If you
Yes, we
scan this
are.
Q, if you scan this QR code and you're watching this online, you're going to be able to this will take you to our Music of Friends sign up link. So you'll be able to join us in that way. Now, I'm going to stop sharing that and share something different. If you would like to sign up for the breakfast, I can set up, we have a sign up link here. Let me share this screen here that this will push an email to Chris Kerner, who is handling our table host. So right now, if you scan this QR code and you're watching this online, it should open your mail app and have you send an email to Chris Kerner, who is our director of lead gifts, who coordinates the breakfast. And this will send her an email so that you can tell her you'd like to either be a table host, and we still do need more table hosts for the breakfast, or would like to attend. And now I'm going to stop sharing that, and I'm going to share one more last thing here. I'm going to share with you this link, just as I shared with you a QR code that'll take you to the Music of Friends. This will take you to the walk page. So if you're watching this online, I do hope we've done this correctly. If not, please just send me an email and we'll get you signed up here. But we wanted to try this something a little different here for those who are viewing this on YouTube or OneDrive later here. But this all, as Jean-Michel mentioned, all of our privately funded programs are come with the help of all of you. You all make this possible. The Welcome Center before 30, Aim Higher, the street outreach that comes with that, as well as supplemental activities. All of our government support is wonderful, but it doesn't cover everything that happens with every program. So we have generous support, for example, for a veterans program. We have generous support for some of our other buildings and programs and activities. Again, we do this with the help of the community, and I just want to thank you. So again, if you're watching this online, hopefully you'll be able to see these QR codes and scan. And if not, please just send me an email at crutledge@friendshipplace.org. One other thing we want to talk about very quickly, and Tracy, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but we are in the middle of our strategic planning process, planning on what our big goals are, our big audacious goals are for 26 through 30, 2030. And uh,
Yeah.
and so this is a chance for us to explore, look at what the needs may be going forward, what our capacity is, what do we need to grow internally. Jean-Michel, do you want to add anything about the strategic plan
Absolutely,
or?
yes. Thank you for that. So we are in the midst of it. We started in the late summer or so. Of course, that involves all the stakeholders at Friendship Place, so the participants, the board members, the volunteers, the people who support us, the staff, of course. We are excited about creating this new plan, which will be submitted to the board at the end of January for its review and approval. We've had some interesting developments as you know, we really had conversations with the stakeholders to see where we were. As usual, during a period of growth and having experienced quite a bit of growth in the last few years, since COVID, we dabbled since the beginning of COVID, for instance. Looking internally will be very important in terms of assessing the infrastructure, making sure that we have enough people doing the work, particularly in, you know, the finance department, administration, HR, all of that. Um, but also, I think there was a tendency in the beginning to think very safely, and then some of us said that, you know, this is a 5-year plan. We need some vision items in there. We like the excitement of working on these plans. We like to show our donors what we're going to do, and or at least envision to do. And so we're working on that, and we will have we have a set of goals that are in draft stage right now, but I we can't wait to actually show you the new plan when it comes out very soon, probably around early February or so, and with the new goals in there. And of course, you know, there's a level of uncertainty. We've been saying it enough, but at the same time, there's really a lot to be said about having confidence in the future and looking ahead and looking at, you know, how we can still grow Friendship Place in the next 5 years, and what we will be like as a community in terms of who we will serve, where we will serve, what the opportunities may be that come along. They seem to come along on a regular basis for us. So all is well there, and we appreciate the work from our two consultants, Tracy Cecil again and Anne McCready.
Right. Tracy, I don't know. I don't know if there's much that you can share this early on, but if there's any comments you'd like to add about strategic planning, please feel free to unmute yourself. If not, you didn't know I was going to call on you. Don't mean to put you on the spot. If you even just want to say hello, that's also fine.
Hi, everybody. No, I don't want to steal the thunder, and the plan is still in development and internal approval, but it definitely reflects the great history and work of Friendship Place. And so I think everybody will be excited to see it when it's live in public. Thanks.
Thank you, and thank you for the work you do on this. Greatly appreciated. So now I'm going to turn us over to the questions in the chat, and there is still plenty of time to ask your questions. So please do pose your questions. Joan, you've asked to start off. Are you serving any people in Montgomery County? The answer is yes through our veterans program, but I'll let Jean-Michel say a little bit more.
Yes, absolutely. So Montgomery County is one of the original counties we started to serve in 2012 when we went to the region level from just one position in DC for the veterans program. It's a very active county. We also, of course, have people who walk over the line for anything they might need, right? The Welcome Center, as you know, is at 4713 Wisconsin, so it's pretty close to the line. Folks can also go to Aim Higher for job placement. It's really a regional program and sometimes beyond in terms of where people get jobs. We've had folks get jobs in Pennsylvania and other states. And then, of course, the Before 30 program, that privately funded case management program for youth 17 to 29, called Before 30, that we started with 5 moms 10 years ago or so, is accessible to anybody. And so folks from the county and other counties really can come and get services there.
Very good. Also, Joan, you had asked, Jean-Michel, we're currently in this process of the HUD Continuum of Care grants. What can you say at this time about the situation,
Well,
diplomatically?
what a timely question, because as of this morning, or maybe yesterday evening, HUD has withdrawn its request for proposals and is retooling, and we don't know what conditions there will be attached to funding there in the new version that we hope will come out soon. Um, but we are planning to reapply for permanent supportive housing. So for us, HUD is what we call the Bridges program, two separate contracts, 22 people currently, capacity 23, and a budget over 600,000. It's a lot of money in a way, but compared to a budget of 24 million, if something were to happen there, we would not be destabilized, I like to say, but we would have to make sure that people found a new way to support their housing, of course. I'm mentioning all this because it is a challenge that we all know about, right? HUD has made the news enough. We are hoping that in the new version, some of the conditions will be dropped. And I'm not going to go over what conditions, but you know the ones I'm thinking about, I'm sure, if you follow it closely. Um, we're gonna, stay calm and manage in this one again, as usual. Apply also because if it's there again for what we call bonus money for job placement, which is a first, and that was a good thing. I hope they're gonna keep it there. And so we are waiting to see what happens with all this.
Very good. And I think that that really does speak to our overall approach towards the world today. Our job is to identify what we can do and what we need to do every day, regardless of the circumstance or the atmosphere, and do it to the best of our ability. And I see our team, case managers, our program managers, our program directors and division directors doing that every day. And I'm just so impressed. And so kudos. I'm Maisha, you're there, you're on the call here. I don't know if I see any other division directors, but thank you to all you do and to the other division directors. It's not easy work in the best of circumstances. And so thank you. Couple of other questions in the chat here. Mary Froning, you said you had a couple of questions and you asked if you could go off mute. So I'll give you that opportunity.
Thanks. One is I used to work with Matt Fruman at Wilson High for a long time, and so I have a little bit of been in with him. I would like to advocate to increase the number to 190 in that program that Mr. Girard was talking about. How can we get information on how to frame that in terms of writing letters and doing the advocacy part of that?
Yes, we can send that to you. Actually, we have a board member, Jamie Butler, who's very active in advocacy for the
Oh, Jamie, I
redevelopment
know
of
Jamie well.
there you go.
That's a
So
great place
she's
to start.
working on some talking points with Lynn, and we can circulate that, and they should go to Matt since you're apparently in Ward 3. That's a
Right.
good idea. Yeah.
And my second is I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, and I haven't heard much about mental health aspects of things and how I might get involved as a volunteer.
Well, we always need volunteer support in that area. And so, we use the housing first model. So there are no questions asked about mental health and addiction. And what that means is the willingness to accept treatment. It's not like the old model where people had to be abstinent and sometimes had to sign a form saying that they had a major diagnosis like schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder. Now we let the person drive their own rebuilding process. And at the same time, what this doesn't mean is that we're not enabling people, we're giving them access to resources as we go along through techniques like motivational interviewing, which for the folks who don't know out there, helps the person examine their own ambivalence around change. We all have a hard time with major life decisions, right? Sometimes we put them aside, they come back, finally, we're ready to work on them, that kind of thing. And then harm reduction, showing, and we have people engaging in harm reduction, meaning that they lower their consumption and feel feel better. So that's how the model works. Um, we could use trainers in that area. If you've done some training, for instance, it's always good. And to work with the teams, particularly, I would say at Neighbors First Families, Neighbors First uh, uh, Singles. These are the two programs where we probably see, especially on the single side, the highest number of people with major diagnoses. Um, at the veterans program, of course, we see people with PTSD, but often with minor forms of illnesses compared to some of the other programs.
Well, I'm a trauma specialist, and
Well, we
which
use trauma.
which causes a lot of, substance abuse issues and other problems with self-esteem and tending to self-sabotage, those kinds of things that get in the way. So anyway, maybe offline, I can get connected somehow.
That'd
We
be
certainly
wonderful.
can help you do that, and we of course use trauma-informed care, right?
Good.
Thank you.
Helping.
Okay.
So for people out there may not know, helping somebody realize that they've had some trauma that was so significant that now it's impacting the way they make some decisions, the way sometimes they behave even, and to put somebody in touch with that is very helpful in the rebuilding process to achieve stability, long-term stability.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. From Anne, I know the original program at Valley Place was meant to start as a pilot. What were some of the lessons we learned regarding the bridge model? What did we learn from Valley Place?
Well, that it works. It's necessary, and even though it's not funded the same way now. Although, the Aston is using it, and a new facility on East Street under Miriam's Kitchen also is. So the model is not going away. Uh, I think, we've learned that as a jurisdiction, and we've made a lot of progress in DC in the last 20 years. We've built a very responsive system that's person-centric, that targets its help the way it needs to. We've created new service options, and this is probably the most recent one, realizing that, in large-scale shelters on cots and with 30, 40 people in a room, it's really hard to get your rest and rebuild. And we've also maybe learned something that we already knew in other parts of the system, that when you have a service-enriched facility as a short-term housing or bridge housing facility, people make faster and better progress. So we've learned that. We've also learned, frankly, that the exits could be more, and it's something for the system to look at for the long term, how these connections happen. There are some challenges in the system right now, due to, the budgetary constraints. And so we've also learned that the system could do better with exits. It's a statistic that I saw this year that came as a bit of a surprise, frankly, and it is worth noting. I like to talk to you about the challenges. I said it earlier, and so we're going to look at that. But generally, it's a great program. It's person-centric. It really looks at the whole person. It treats people with respect. It's what we need in a city, especially with what's going on now.
Thank you. Another question in the chat, talking about how were we helping people who are being removed from encampments find places? And as you've mentioned, we
Yes.
operate a number of buildings that. Can you talk about the process that takes someone from being in an encampment to perhaps one of our buildings?
Yes, well, there are outreach workers in different parts of the city. We provide street outreach in Upper Northwest, um, with private funds at Friendship Place, and it's sort of a deeper outreach than what the city is able to provide, because we go out several times a week. We establish relationships with people. And so the outreach workers are key in helping people from the encampments making these decisions, right? Using the techniques. If the person is hesitant at first, it's completely understanding that after living outside, and also as it was before and not at all now, but there were attend communities with a structure, leaders, people keeping one another safe at night. So leaving that kind of situation, was challenging sometimes for people. And then it's all about the outreach worker linking to the coordinated entry system, making sure that the person's name gets on the list for DHS, that the person gets into one of the programs. And again, right now for singles, there's a direct path to the Aston for us and to East Street under Miriam's Kitchen. And then other possibilities. The person might already be working with a permanent supportive housing case manager and might be able to jump all the way up to their own apartment without the bridge housing phase. So there are different options. Um, some people are helped to go back to different states also. It's really up to the person and what they're looking for. I'm happy to say that at Friendship Place, we did not lose anybody this summer. We were able to really do some surge work, as we say, intensify our outreach work, making sure that people knew what was going on. And for veterans in particular, we had funds from the Department of Veterans Affairs, and we were able to um, access motel rooms for the veterans. And so it worked out rather well for us.
Thank you. We do have more time for questions in the chat, but I'll pose a few questions that I have myself here. You talked earlier about our jobs first model and the importance of getting people into employment quickly. Yeah, what sort of jobs do we find that people are moving into? So how, if someone comes to us that may not have deep education, for example, what sort of jobs do we think we're able to find for folks?
So it really depends what the person is looking for. Our group really has evolved with the relocation to U Street. I've seen that. The trends have evolved. Um, what we are looking at are service jobs. Certainly the hotels, the hospitals, security is a big one also, the concierge companies, a solar company. So it's really as varied in a way at what the person wants to do, but it's always linked to the market. We follow the trends again there very carefully, and we help somebody prepare for something that is in demand in the market. It's really important to level with people. Our
Mhm.
model takes a look at the person the way I mentioned. We assume employability, but we also help the person make a decision that there is a skill set she or he can get paid for now, but it may not be the skill set they were using prior to the period of destabilization. There's an adaptation piece that's important, and we have to level with the person to an. They may start at a lower level professionally. We've seen that, and then we help people move up. Um, but that form of negotiation as we build self-confidence is really important. And again, it's as varied as the job market with some, of course, main areas that I mentioned earlier.
Very good. And yeah, Richard McKee, who's the divisional director of Aim Higher, will say over and over again, the important thing is to start getting a paycheck, to get back in the market. That's the best way to get back to stability. And you mentioned that so it may not be what someone had been doing before. And one of the key examples at the early on in Aim Higher, we had someone who would I won't mention name, but he's someone who'd spoken for us. He had worked in the mortgage industry, and around 2008 came along, and when we all know what happened in 2008 with the mortgage industry, and he found himself having lost, well, everything and living in his car. And he came to find us, and we've got him into job after job. And now he's back in financial services. In fact, I think he might be near retirement at this point. But to go, it's important to, I think, to recognize that, as you say, what you've done may not be what you're going to do immediately.
Mm.
And what you're doing right now doesn't mean it's necessarily what you're going to be doing down the road, but it's all a multi-step process to get back to stability and that growth. That's important.
It is, and to look at maybe the first job as a pass-through job is what we look
Mhm.
at in the field. It may not be, again, your dream job. It may not pay what you really want to make, but it's going to get you at least into a shared situation, as we mentioned earlier. It's going to help you access a room as a roommate in a house, a housemate. And it's something that you may do for up to a year and then come back to us for a better job, and we work in that direction also. Uh, we're also very non-judgmental about particularly our young people who may change jobs every few months.
Mm.
Some of us remember that that phase in our lives. So, it's that is the same for the young people now.
Another question in the chat pertaining to employment. How, when someone might need medication to maintain their stability, but don't want to take that medication, how does that impact their ability to find and hold a job?
So, again, everything is voluntary in the field these days, in all the rehabilitation related fields. And that's a very good thing because we have to think of our roots, right? We come from deinstitutionalization when people were held in mental health hospitals or state facilities for people with mental retardation, as we said then, and really had no choices. And so the fact that everything is voluntary, and it took some advocates, particularly on the mental health side, that group of family members of people with the diagnosis pushing for reform. We've come a long way, and it's so important to hang on to that thought that voluntary services are key. Involuntary services don't work. We know that. There might be, a hospitalization that's needed when somebody doesn't wish to go in. We know that those are special situations, if you want. But in general, in the field, in the community, everything should be voluntary. Um, and so we don't really see people who have a hard time on the job. I think it was a question because they don't take their meds. People just like all of us decide, when to take your meds and so on and so forth. If you have a prescription, and how to manage that given the reactions you may get from the meds. But there's also a larger debate for us, and it's around functional addiction. So it's making me think of that. We have a number of people we have placed who are still using drugs and alcohol, and they are functional users in that they carve out 8 to 12 hours a day for work, and they're able to be productive on the job, hang on to jobs. And we feel that it's really important to place these folks too, because why would we close the door in front of them? Work is a socializer. It increases your social time. And in recovery, people change for the community. They change for others. They are concerned about the way others perceive them. So they change well in social settings. So the two go together very well. And increasing people's social exposure through work is a very good thing to help the person with harm reduction, as we mentioned earlier.
Thank you. Saul, my old friend, you have your hand up.
Thanks, Chris. And hello, everyone. I just have a vague question that's going to seem terribly self-serving, but one of the reasons that I stay aligned with Friendship Place is because of its organizational value of training. And Friendship Place is just, I think, leads. Uh, it leads our field in terms of what it offers its staff and also the community. So without naming any training topic names, I'm just wondering if some of those trainings could return and what's the outlook for that? And also, um, are there any new ideas that are coming up? And also maybe the trainings being framed as conversations rather than trainings, just offerings for space to speak into in the community. Thanks for letting me share.
No, thank
What a
you.
great question. Thank you, Sol. And Sol was our training coordinator up until 2020, and Sol and I are conference partners. We present at the conferences throughout the year. Uh, Great question. We are certainly still training in all the basic areas, motivational interviewing, basic mental health. I've been thinking that it would be nice to go back to basics of housing first, where team members are trained, but it's always good to explore again. And yes, and you do so well with these conversation type trainings that I'm sure we'll reach out soon to schedule a few in 2026. That should be definitely part of the vision. It's going to be also part of the back to the strategic plan. How
Hmm.
we support staff is something that we're going to look at again. You know, we've gone through a lot, COVID, other things, the current situation, and so supporting staff is really important. And we're going to look at doing that through new trainings.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Thank
So we're
you.
down to our last few minutes. I want to just maybe if we could do a quick lightning, and then I want to share those QR codes one more time if we can. A question: how does a homeless person, someone who's unhoused rather, find us? And I can answer that very quickly. The answer really is it depends, Evelyn. Your question in the chat. In terms of people coming to the drop-in center, that very much is word of mouth. People who have utilized the services of the drop-in center talk amongst each other or talk to other people they see who are unhoused and refer people. The Veterans Program is self-referred, as is Aim Higher. For our buildings, that's referred by DHS and other city entities, as well as the permanent supportive housing. It's really, it's great that we have multiple entryways into the work that we do here. And, for each of the programs, there's a slightly different way that people will come to it. I think that if one comes to the drop-in center, our welcome center, and again, the hours for that are Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday from 9 to 12 and 1 to 4. That's a great place to start. And you can talk to a case manager there about what some of the services, not just offered by Friendship Place, but offered by the city, by the government, by their service providers. It's a great place to start there. And Jean-Michel, if you don't mind, I'll let you take the question about what work do we do with the neighborhood villages?
So we have a new partnership, or newer partnership with the neighborhood villages, which is really exciting. For people who don't know, the villages help seniors age in place so they don't have to move to nursing homes or other facilities. So they're wonderful initiatives. We are in touch with three in Upper Northwest. We have trained their volunteers in practices. So that they can be more successful in engaging seniors. Uh, there is a fee for seniors to join the village, but in the case of our participants, the fee is waived because of this partnership. And we are looking to move it forward right now, particularly with the folks we house with Anne's Place, formerly Anne Frank House. We have 10 people in place there, where volunteers from the villages will come and help our folks with shopping and company and other things. So it's really a very nice new partnership that we have with these organizations.
Thank you. So we're coming up on time. I really want to just loop back around at some of our activities in terms of development. One thing of note is we're working to expand our corporate support. So if you have contacts with a corporation, you can reach out to me or Sharice Malachi, our consultant who's working on that. We're also looking to build what we're calling our next gen network. So that next generation of donors, and Chris Kennedy is coordinating that. You may have seen word we did a wonderful happy hour last Thursday, and we had about 40 folks come to attend to learn more, that next generation of supporters and just so much energy. So if you know someone who might be younger, might be interested in learning more about our work, email me. I'll put you in touch with Chris Kennedy. It's a very valuable opportunity to engage. And then one more time for those who are watching this at home, and then Jean-Michel, I'll allow you to close here if you don't mind. I'm going to put three quick QR codes up on the screen. So this first QR code, if you scan this and you're watching this at home, you scan this and this will take you to register for Music of Friends on February the 1st. That's Music of Friends, February 1st. I'll stop sharing and I will now share the second QR code. If you scan this QR code, you will see this is an opportunity to send an email to Chris Kerner about the breakfast on March the 18th. If you'd like to be a table host, and as I mentioned earlier, we're still looking, I believe, for about 10 table hosts. For those who don't know, a table host is someone who comes to the breakfast and brings people to to the breakfast. We bring 7 friends, or if you're a half table, you bring 3 friends. So please, we'd love for you to come there. That's March 18th in the morning. And then the last thing I'm going to share is for the walk, and I'm going to share this QR code. And again, I apologize for those viewing at home if this QR codes are not working for you, but send me an email and we'll coordinate and get you signed up. But that is to sign up for a walk on March the 25th. So I'll stop sharing that. And then quickly, I'm going to tease something that we cannot tell you about. But there's going to be some exciting news coming out next week, later in the week, I believe it is. So be alert next Thursday, I believe it is. You'll learn more about something very exciting pertaining to Friendship Place. That's the best I can do as a teaser for you. And unfortunately, yes, because the news is embargoed until then. But mark your calendars. Follow the news on the 18th of December, and you'll see that exciting news. With that, Jean-Michel, sorry we're running late, but I'm going to turn over
Yes.
to you to conclude.
Well, Chris, thank you again for facilitating the webinar today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I appreciate your support very much. Uh, Happy holidays, and we'll see you in the new year, if not sooner. Be well.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for your ongoing support. Have a great week, holiday season.